and welcome to the Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and a content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we're bringing you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. This podcast is sponsored by our good friends at Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software made just for Australian freelancers and sole traders. It's everything you need to make freelancing easier. Find out more at rounded.com.au.
Also, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, Rounded is giving you 20% off an annual subscription plan. Upgrade to gold membership for all the details. Hi, Lynn. Hi, everybody who's out there listening.
Hi, Rach. It's great to be back again this week. And I'm really excited about our guest today because I love it when we have successful freelancers on the pod and shows there are so many ways to make a living as a freelancer. Mm-hmm. This week, we're chatting with my friend Hieu Nguyen. And Hieu has been living and freelancing in New York for the last few years, and he's going to share his story and how he makes it work.
Mm-hmm. I think this will be a great chat. I'm just going to read out a little short bio of Hieu, and spoiler alert, it's quite something. In 1979, a 3-year-old boy named Hieu from Vietnam escaped on a boat with his family in search of a better life. After sailing at sea for several days without food or water, their boat hit the shores of Thailand. And from there, they were sponsored by Hieu's uncle, who'd already been living in Sydney. Hieu grew up in Fairfield in Sydney's western suburbs and studied graphic design at Liverpool TAFE. After college, he landed his dream job as a design cadet on Australian Gourmet Traveller magazine at the age of 20. He was promoted to art director by 23, then moved on to become the creative director for the Australian Women's Weekly cookbook soon after. And that was a position he held for 15 successful years, before deciding to pack up his life in Australia and move to the Big Apple to start his own design agency. For the past 6 years, his clients have included Amazon Publishing, Amazon Fashion, AT&T, Microsoft Brand Store, and other corporate giants in the tech and finance space. Isn't it weird hearing your bio read back to you here?
It is weird. I should write it in the third person.
Welcome to the podcast. It's just amazing. Do you remember anything of that initial trip on the boat, or were you just too little?
No, my very first memory was in Australia. Like a few years after that, I have no memory of the boat trip at all. And wow. I'm kind of glad that I don't have a memory of it because I don't think that it would be pleasant.
No food or water for 3 days. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I do remember, Hieu, that your birthday was wrong because your dad didn't understand the form when you arrived. Wasn't there something about that?
My dad wrote the date of arrival instead of the date of birth on some documentation that was then to become my entire life's date of birth on my license, on everything that I had. So I grew up kind of celebrating 2 birthdays.
That's quite good. 2 cakes, 2 presents. I can see the plus in that. You were telling us off air about a story about when you first went to school, and tell us a little bit about that.
The first time that I learnt English was when I first started kindergarten. And I had already been in Australia for 2 years, from like 3 to 5. And one day I remember that I had left my lunch at home. It was probably like a tiffin tin with fried rice and spring rolls or something like that. And my teacher felt so bad for me that she went and bought me a Vegemite sandwich. I'd never heard of Vegemite in my entire life. I remember sitting in the playground alone, and she gave me this sandwich, and it was like wrapped in kind of like, butcher's paper. And I took a bite, and it was the worst thing that I'd ever tasted in my entire life. So I kind of quietly put it under the seat in the playground so she wouldn't see. Because I felt really bad that she bought my lunch. So I kind of hid the fact that I didn't finish it.
And have you developed a taste for Vegemite since?
Oh yes, I love Vegemite.
There you go.
It is an acquired taste.
It's a slow burn, Vegemite. Yeah.
That's what I tell all my American friends. You don't spread it on the bread like peanut butter.
No.
Oh my God.
Oh, but how about we start with you telling us a bit about your work, Hieu, because I know you've been freelancing on and off. It was about 6 years, you said. So how did you start, and who are you working for at the moment?
Yeah, so when I left Australia in 2016 because I had always wanted to move to New York and work.
Yeah.
And so a lot of Australians move to New York because they find a job to go to or their company transfers them to the American office.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that luxury. So I just basically saved up money, moved, bought a one-way ticket. And I went to New York first on a 3-month tourist visa to kind of like work out which neighborhood I wanted to live in. So I spent like a month in each neighborhood.
Yeah.
I only decided on Soho when I moved here, so I live in Soho, Manhattan. But I spent those 3 months making contacts. And then I went back to Australia and organized my visa because one of the contacts that I made during my 3 months as a tourist gave me the opportunity to make connections, and they said, "Oh, we'll sponsor you." So I actually was sponsored by an agency who really liked my work, and that was actually on the very last day of my trip. So I got I thought I was going back to Australia without a visa sponsor.
That's really interesting. I imagine it's different these days, or perhaps harder these days. How long did it take you, to organize the sponsorship and actually move?
So it's been the same all the time, but I think it's been harder now. I think the hardest thing is actually to convince employers in America that the visa process is super simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a misconception that it's hard, and Australians have such a great relationship with America, and they have this thing called the E3 visa, which means that the candidate organizes all the paperwork and the employer does none of it. So there is like one online form that the employer has to submit. So I think that once you sort of get into a conversation with them and you have the opportunity to say, because timing is everything.
Yeah.
And often I would not disclose that, hey, I need to be a sponsor. So depending on the client that I would be speaking to, I would hold that information. I would obviously, it's almost like dating. So
Yes.
you don't tell them that you still live at home with your parents until like, the 5th date.
Bad look.
Yeah, for designers and also for any sort of like freelancer, agencies are the best approach to getting a visa sponsor because they have done it before. They know the process. The only caveat is that an agency cannot sponsor your visa until their client makes an offer.
All right.
So the situation is, so I went, and one of the things that I learned quickly with being in New York when I had a conversation with another graphic designer, and he said, "Oh, who are you with?" And I said, "I was with, such and such an agency." And he goes, "And what else?" And I said, "No, just with that." And he goes, "This is New York. Why are you with one agency? You need like 16 agencies representing you."
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Right. That's when it switched.
Yeah.
Because I realized that I was really kind of playing in a different field.
Yeah.
It was that much more competitive. And so, I mean, that sort of advice alone sort of like made me realize that I had to go the extra mile in so many other areas.
Because you're operating in such a bigger market, I suppose.
Yeah, it's such a bigger market, and it's such a, like the people that I was going to interviews that I was up against, they had done TED Talks, they had authored like 2 books, they had, lots of different things going on.
Yeah.
In addition to being an art director or a designer. So I think their list of, I guess, passion projects and things outside of their job was just so impressive. So that made me start going and doing other things. I started a blog. I started writing articles for certain clients as well.
Yep.
I realized that I really had to kind of like go the extra mile in New York if I wanted to get noticed. So I sort of set about doing that.
Wow.
And then what's the process once you've been sponsored, I suppose, for a couple of years? Are you then eligible to get a green card? How does it all work from there if you wanted to stay?
Yeah, so different visas. So the visa that everyone understands. So there's the E3 visa, which is specifically for Australians, and that is the one that doesn't cost the employer anything. It is infinitely renewable every 2 years. So as long as you stay with the same employer, you just leave the country, go to Canada, go back to Sydney, go wherever. As long as you leave the country, you go to the consulate saying, "Oh, my employer is I need this restamped," and it's a 2-year visa, and it's a really easy visa to get. All you need is a degree, or 12 years experience in a specialized profession. So it's like 4. They sort of measure 4 years is the equivalent of 1 year of study. 3 years equals a degree. So I had like 12 years experience as an art director. So it's pretty easy. But it doesn't give you are points that accrues towards a green card.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of the visa is that it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
It's temporary until that employer no longer wants to employ you. You know, and lots of Australians are here and they will finish up with an employer, and then there is sort of like a limited amount of time to get a new job. Otherwise, they have to leave the country.
Yeah.
But if you do want to work towards a green card, then the best thing to do is to have that conversation with your employer who's been sponsoring your E3 visa and ask them to switch visas to like an H1 visa, because that's the one that eventually will accrue points towards a green card.
Oh, wow.
And is that what you need eventually if you want to freelance and start your own business over there?
Yeah, so if you want to start your own business over here, yes, correct. You have to have a green card.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you have to be, you have to work without having a visa sponsor. If you were sponsored through an agency, as long as you have like a valid visa. I mean, so what I did in between jobs, in between clients, was I did freelance work. I didn't have a green card. You know, it's all Australians do that. Should they do it? I don't know. But you know, as long as you have a visa, I paid all my taxes. So, you know, I had like a number of clients when I was in between jobs. Because what would happen was I would have a 2-year visa. I would do a contract with Amazon for about 6 months. And then I had a 3-month gap, because I don't know what it's like in Australia, but in America, they only limit contracts to 6 months or 9 months. And then you would have to go away for 3 months and then come back. The government here makes companies employ people full time. So they say, you know, if you're going to hire like a freelancer for 6 months, you should just like make them full time. Obviously, a lot of companies will just go from contract to contract. So you can't just like do 2 years of contract work. It'll be 6 or 9 months. And then Amazon said to me, okay, look, you have to go on a break for 3 months and then come back and do like another 6-month leg.
Yeah. So you're freelance. One of the things I was interested in, not only do you freelance for people in the States, you've also freelanced for Australian companies as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so I have kind of like 2 systems set up where all my invoicing is Australian and American, so they don't cross over. And so I just keep my Australian bank account. So all my sort of like invoicing kind of like goes through, gets deposited into my Australian bank account, which I just leave there. And my American clients, you know, so I have like
2 systems.
2 systems with 2 different currencies set up. I do know that I have to pay New York tax, American federal tax on all freelance work done outside the country. So wherever it's, you know, because I've had clients in Australia, in other countries as well, but the tax that I pay has to be going to the US government.
And did you sort of find it really hard to establish yourself and find clients, or was the fact that you're in this bigger pond much easier? Is it, you know?
Yeah,
really
so there's a couple of things that I learned. I think I learned, it took me 6 months to really get into the swing of it. I think my first job offer with a big client was with Amazon Publishing. And a lot of that was because I had a publishing background. So that was kind of easy to get. One of the things that I did was, I mean, I hired a resume writer, but I removed all Australian terminology from my resume. So instead of the Australian Women's Weekly, I called it the Women's Weekly. Instead of calling it Australian Consolidated Press, I called it ACP. You know, like that was like a couple of years ago. So when I removed all of those, because they're kind of red flags for companies who are going to look at a candidate and go, oh, okay, it's like sponsor alert. So they're going to like push it aside. As soon as I removed all of those Australian references, I had a lot more interviews.
Oh, that's interesting. You've got a really strong portfolio, though. Is that what they were looking at? I mean, the work you did at Gourmet Traveller.
So my portfolio, when I left Australia, a lot of my entire career was in publishing. And I wanted to do other things when I moved here. So during the 6 months it took me to find a full-time job, I did a lot of fake projects. I wrote myself briefs. I designed 50 book covers because I thought, okay, you know, I might, you know, like design book covers. I took a lot of the work that I did in magazines and I cropped them so that they didn't look like editorial. So obviously I had like, you know, editorial work, and then I had work, and then I just cropped certain layers and I thought, okay, well that looks like a poster, so I'll just kind of like have like a poster page, and so I did a lot of things that made the volume of work on my website looked like I was skilled in all these areas.
Yeah.
And I had all these clients. But really at the time, 50% of it was stuff that I just made up.
Yeah, mock-ups.
And I think that a lot of designers kind of like show their portfolio, because, like they get into this mindset where this is all they've done.
Yeah.
And I think you're an art director, you can actually kind of like give yourself any brief, open slather, and you can just do that. And because clients, potential employers, all they do is they just want to see that you can actually design in that area. When I first went freelance, I actually took a lot of jobs at a rate that I would not take now, because I really wanted the opportunity to expand the type of work that I was getting. So I didn't have any web design work.
Yeah.
So I did a few websites for clients in Australia and in the US for like a fraction of what I would charge now, because I just, I don't think web design
you wanted to expand your portfolio, really.
And also, it's not one of those things that you can just mock up, because it needs to be live. So someone wants to go and see the website. So it's not like I can just like make it up unless I kind of like invent the company. So I basically did a lot of work in my own time and took a lot of jobs well below market rate, because I knew that it was an investment, and I think it really paid off.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I was going to ask about freelancing during the pandemic, because in the US it was pretty full on, particularly, and New York had it really tough. And I know that you were really sick with COVID in that first wave. You were in hospital and everything, weren't you?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I was in hospital for 6 days.
Oh,
I didn't think that it would hit me. And there was this was before the vaccine. It was like in December 2020.
Yeah.
And we had a vaccine in the middle of 2021. So this was like in December. I remember December 25, and an ambulance came and took me to the hospital, where they did some tests, and they said, look, you need to stay here for a few days for us to monitor you. And I was like, all I could think about was worrying that I was taking a hospital bed from someone else. So, but I was there for 6 days, came back on New Year's Eve from the December 25 to the 31st, watch Schitt's Creek on my mobile phone the entire time. And then so that was, so I have like, when I watch reruns of Schitt's Creek now, it brings back sort of memories. Not the greatest memories, but it was sort of like,
got you through it.
Yeah, it did get me through it.
Were the hospitals crazy at that time? Like, do you remember it being super chaotic?
They were crazy. The entire floor at the hospital that I went to was like downtown. The entire floor was full of COVID patients.
Yeah.
And rooms were like, they had like 2 patients per room, just divided by a curtain. And basically everyone's just like coughing.
Oh God.
The entire time. And the nurses come in and they're all sort of, they look like they're like walking on the moon.
Yeah.
But I was lucky then, because it was over December, and I was working for AT&T at the time. And we were on a Christmas break. So
of all the times to get it, very convenient for you.
Yeah, right. So it didn't really affect my work, but I was lucky during the 2 years during the pandemic. I was employed the entire time. I was really lucky.
Yeah.
It was just working from home, and going out on the streets of New York was a very weird thing at the time.
Yeah.
It was like that scene in Vanilla Sky when Tom Cruise walks through Times Square and it's empty.
Yeah.
It was like that.
Yeah. Freaky, really, isn't it? It's just so scary. My husband ended up going in the middle of the pandemic to the UK because his dad died, and he came back after 3 months, and he was the only passenger on the plane. And he just said that was the weirdest experience.
Never again.
Very strange.
One of the other things that I did to find work when I first moved here, this was when I was like waiting to get a full-time job offer. I realized that, and a lot of people said Craigslist was sort of, a lot of companies will go through Craigslist for jobs because they want to bypass recruiters.
Yeah.
They want to go direct to the candidate. And what I realized was that companies who were advertising on Craigslist were obviously in need of a designer or whatever other profession. And so they have an enormous amount of work. They're looking to fill a position. And what I realized was that I would apply for jobs, below my level deliberately.
Yep.
And then they wouldn't know my experience until they met me, until I got to the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke and I talked about my, because they would see my resume, but who looks at a resume when you're a designer? They just look at your website. Mm-hmm. So when they got there, they had the resume and they're like, wow, you're like a lot more experienced than we thought. So we don't think that you're going to be happy in this role. But hey, are you available for freelance work? So, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I'm available. So what would happen? So I just kept doing that over and over and over. I would deliberately apply for jobs below my level, knowing that I would not get the job, but that it would open a door. It was so much better than cold calling, because basically I was actually putting myself in front of potential clients through their own invitation. So I kind of built a freelance kind of like clientele that way. And that really just filled my time.
How amazing. Talk us through some of the different things that you do. Like, what's a week in the life of Hieu's work look like?
Yeah, so now at the moment, so I started my company. I registered my company as an official LLC. So it's kind of like a P2I Ltd in Australia. So now it's a New York-based company, and I have built a list of regular clients. They're mostly in the finance tech space. And I think that come through from my full-time jobs in the previous years. I've worked for like AT&T and Amazon. So a lot of what you say yes to dictates the kind of clients that you'll attract later. I think that is, it's a good, sometimes I will say no to certain jobs because I know that that's not going to be the area that I want to head down.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is about like the things you say no to as well as the things you say yes to. But a typical week for me, I have about a few clients that have put me on a retainer to work for them. And it's all, I work from home full time. And I would switch from one client to another. Like I could do work for 3 different clients in a day. Or I could have like a day where I don't do any work. If someone wants to, like if someone calls me for lunch and I know that I have a lot of work to do, but it's already due, I'll go for lunch. Or go to the gym. And I think that is the wonderful thing about being a freelance worker, because I can just like shuffle my time and nobody knows.
Yeah.
And then I'll just like jump back online. And there was a stage where I had like 3 different laptops because they would send me a laptop to use because I worked for my for about 6 months. So they sent me a computer. So when I would work for them, I would turn that on, work like a full day, and then switch it off. And then the next day I would use another laptop. So it is a bit of a shuffle.
Yeah. What type of projects really excite you the most?
I love working for startups. It's kind of a bit of startups is tricky because they don't normally have a lot of money to spend. But I think for me, a lot of working is just not so much about the money. I think it's about the joy of like really helping companies find their voice, find their brand identity, help them articulate their message. I think that that brings me more joy than the money that they pay me. So, and also they have so much energy as well. They're full of ideas, and everybody in a startup is like providing feedback. So I think that makes it interesting as well.
You do love, I know you're a bit of a workaholic, aren't you, Hieu? You work a lot.
Yeah, I do love, I feel lucky that I chose a profession that I really enjoy. And I think over the years, I've tried to maneuver from editorial design to branding to web design to presentation design, depending on where the work was. And now I feel like really lucky because I've set myself up in a way where I can work with the clients that I like. So, like my company is sort of still at its early stage. And I'm very kind of cautious about who I spend a lot of time helping and whether that's going to lead to other things.
So you're kind of strategic about what you take on and you look at a bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like in terms of the client. So it's really never about how much they pay. I think it's whether or not that client is going to lead to other things. But I think, the type of work is mostly, I love doing branding. I think that is an area that I really enjoy helping new businesses for.
Wow. One of the things that did impress me is that when we worked together on the Farmer Cookbook, how many clever tech things you had. So you're always working remotely. So that was really interesting. If you're working at home, you're communicating with so many different systems. You had so many clever tools that I'd never seen before.
Yeah. So I just make sure, I think for me, I think a lot of this has come from working with Amazon, because I think that they have so many systems and processes in place that make sure that, because wherever you work at Amazon, it's a factory.
Yeah.
Whether you're sort of putting things in boxes or whether you're a copyright designer or a marketer, it is a factory that never stops. And I think that taught me that when you're working on a project that involves a lot of people in different places, the first thing you need to do is set the process on how things run, how things are reviewed in a timely way, who provides feedback, is a single point of contact, is a, because the worst thing for a designer is to sort of like receive 12 different sort of like threads of feedback that they have to kind of like weigh up and who has the biggest say. I think that a freelance designer really has to become a project manager in a lot of situations and learn to push back where needed. I think, and it's not just like you're not just designing for someone. I think you have to really be the guidance.
Yeah.
Because clients are leaning to you to make recommendations. And I think based on the kind of the way that you articulate your pushback will determine whether or not that's going to be well received, because, you don't want to have fights with the editor. You just want to say, look, like, I don't think this is, I can see what I can see why you want this change. I would recommend this. Why don't we try both? So a lot of those negotiations need to be had because, at the end of the day, like everyone on the team wants the greatest result. So it's not about fighting. It's about understanding how to get there, because it's not always like, there's not always one way to get there.
I think that's a really important point for freelancers across the board, and it's often not something you learn until you've been freelancing for a few years, how important those onboarding processes are and those systems that you create for yourself so that you have a framework to go to the client with, and it can just save so much time and hassle and back and forth and rewrites in our case and
stress
redesigns in your case. And it's important.
I think the other thing that's helpful is when you're working with new people, find a way to build trust very quickly, because once you establish trust, people will be much more receptive to you disagreeing with them.
Yes.
Because they trust you, and I think the way that I've presented it often in the past is I present my ideas as options, not as an alternative. It's not like, look at this. I'm not saying this is better. I'm saying what you said is great. This is another way to look at it. Let's discuss it. I think, and I really avoid kind of like written feedback. I think that a lot of things need to be discussed. Like when we worked in offices, we were able to sort of like gather around the table and look at layouts and looked at, like, would we repaginate the stories? You can't have that when you work remotely. So you need to find another way to do it. So even if it means like, multiple video calls throughout the week, especially like amped up to a deadline, then I'm available for a video call anytime.
Interesting. Look, I know that setting rates is also one of the trickiest things that we do as freelancers. And you've mentioned that your rates are much higher now than they used to be. So how has that process evolved for you, and how do you approach setting rates?
Yeah, so one of the things someone told me once was to never be the first one to let the client know your rate. So if you can hold off, find out what their budget is. Clients always have a budget, even when they pretend that they don't. They always have a limit on how much they want to spend, so they'll want you to say your rate first. I always say, tell me what the budget is. And then sometimes I've had conversations where I've had to say that 2 times because they're like, no, don't tell us what your rate is. And I'm like, no, tell me what your budget is. So it's about like, okay, well, I'm just not going to give up on this one. I really want to know, like, what did you pay your last designer? So if you're working with a particular client who doesn't know what they want to spend, I think it's important to have a conversation about how much you charge versus the value that your rate provides.
Mhm.
I think it needs to be more detailed than just here is my hourly rate.
Yeah.
Here's an itemized breakdown of all the things that will go into this web design. It's X amount per page. If you added a contact form, it'll be this much. So they want to see a list, and then they want to sort of scale back and go, we don't need this, we don't need this, we don't need that.
Because working with startups, because they probably have less experience at working with designers, wouldn't they? If they've got nothing
absolutely.
to,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that makes it tricky. And so that's where a designer really sort of has to sort of step it up and sort of play the role of a project manager, you know, and you actually have to really do a lot of hand holding. You know, and I think the other thing about with design is that I always find it easy to set a project fee, a set fee. So based on the kickoff call, we'll discuss the needs of the project, the goals, the timeline, and I will give them a total amount.
Yeah.
And if that amount is too high, I usually try to give, depending on the client, I might give a total amount and I might give a breakdown of all the things, and then they can sort of see clearly what they want to take away. I very rarely charge by the hour.
Yeah. And you mentioned value, you know, having discussions about the value of your rate as opposed to just this is my rate. Does that come into like value-based pricing with any of your clients where you might quote based on the ultimate value of the project or a proportion of that project?
I guess what I mean by value is that, you know, I will compare, you know, because usually I can sense that they are trying to get the best price compared to other designers.
Yeah.
And so where I've added value is I've actually sort of shown them data on where hiring me would be a better choice. So it's not just about the rate, it's about, okay, this is what it's, you know, like I might cost a little bit more in the short term, but these are the examples of what I've done with clients in the past that has led to their success.
Yeah.
So you really kind of put the ball in their court and you're kind of, it's a gamble for them.
Yeah.
So they're thinking, okay, well, do I pay $2,000 for this designer or do I pay $3,000 for this designer who's had a much better track record? So that's where the value is.
It's tricky as well. Like when they say, I don't know what I want to pay. Like I just had a client this week who wants a quote, has no idea what she wants and has never hired a copywriter. So I find that really tricky. But in those cases, I sometimes say, well, this is a similar project that I did and this is what the client paid. So that's the kind of...
I think clients like to know that they're not getting ripped off.
Yeah.
You know, so when you do give examples of what other clients that they know, it could be their competition. I think it's always a good idea to sort of like pull examples of people that, you know, wow, that's, you know, that's a competing brand that has hired you. And that's what they've done. And suddenly they, you know, like they might need to step it up. You know, if they want to be like that brand that they're competing with, then they should pay a similar rate. I think that's a really good starting point because they just can't help but compare themselves to their competitors.
Yeah. Interesting.
Wow. So we were talking about some tech and things. Are there any particular useful digital tools that you use and recommend?
I love using Slack. I think Slack is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I use Dropbox because I think, you know, like Dropbox provides version history when clients will go, you know what, like let's go back to that other version that we rejected. And
oh my God,
You could have like files that have like final _final, final 2, final 3, final 4.
I'm sure there's a meme on that.
Right. So Dropbox will allow you to kind of like, you know, so that's why I used, you know, so basically Dropbox has become the server that I use between me and clients no matter where they are in the world. And Slack is such a great way to communicate. It's like, it's off email. You can have threads, you can have enormous file sizes. So if I want to like send a PDF to a client to get quick feedback, and also clients will know when I'm online as well because the light is on.
Yeah, it's a game changer. We just started using Slack at Rachel's List and it has completely changed our business, how we work. Lynn and I are on there for the podcast. We have a channel for the podcast. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot recommend Slack enough. And I try to, you know, for companies that haven't used it and they're like scrambling and they send like a ton of emails.
Yeah.
It's almost like when I was using Quark Express and I was like, making the jump to InDesign. Once you make the jump, it is so much better.
Yeah. I still miss Quark Express though. Wasn't that a lovely program in its day?
Yeah. Trying to start with.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, we could talk to you all day, Hieu, but we should probably wrap up. What's coming up for you? Are you there for the long haul? Are you coming back to Australia? Have you got a plan, for that?
I'm here for the long haul. I'm really settled. I live in a great part of the city. I've built up like a great network of friends. So I'm looking forward to traveling back sometime next year when time permits. It's really I'm going to be here for a while, and I'll just be dividing my life between Sydney and New York. It'll be like these are really my two homes now.
Yeah.
I don't have one home. I have like two homes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is there anything else that's really important to mention for freelancers who might be wanting to kind of do the same thing as you and take that leap to live in New York or live in the US?
I did think about this earlier, and whether you're a designer or a copywriter, because I work a lot of, like when I moved out of publishing and I moved into the tech space, I realized that copywriting skills and needs were everywhere, not just in publishing, not just in editorial.
Yeah.
I think that to get more work as any type of freelancer, go to the companies that you never thought to go to before. Amazon has a great careers website. Nike has a great careers website. Like lots of big companies, whether it's tech, finance, fashion, whatever, go to their careers page and check out the jobs that they have, because I think that it'll really open up so many doors rather than just waiting for the usual supply of clients to kind of like reach out.
Yeah.
Fantastic tip.
Wow. So much to think about, Hieu. It's so lovely to see you, even on the Zoom. And it's so much information, and it's really encouraging because your story is such a success, and I think it's really good. And I think it will be quite inspiring for our listeners.
I think so as well. Thank you for being on, and let us know where can people find you if they want to connect with you.
They can reach out to me on Instagram. They can DM me there. It's Think Big Design Group. That's my handle. If anyone wants to make the move to New York, I would encourage that they do it. And there are lots of ways that they could do it easily and be really successful. It's not as hard as people think. They just need to be patient.
You've put in a lot of work, though. We can tell.
Yeah, to kind of establish yourself there and everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll put some links in for people who want to connect with you or follow you on Insta or LinkedIn. So we'll do that. Thank you so much for being our guest. I guess, Lynn, that brings us to the end of the show this week, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, but thanks to everyone who's listening and sharing us on social media. And if you like the show, please leave a rating and a review on the platform where you pick up your podcast.
Yeah, and I should say thanks again to our sponsors, rounded.com.au, because they're easy in accounting and invoicing software, and they're just made for Australian freelancers and sole traders. So go to rounded.com.au.
Yes, thanks, Rounded. We love you guys. Okay, we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.